We are recording episode 774, Tuesday, April 5th, 2022, with the great Clare Lopez of Lopez Liberty LLC. I finally got it. I didn't have to ask you for it. And I will put the links to your website, your writings, your articles, and most importantly, your Twitter in the description. But, Miss Lopez, where are we in world events, most notably Ukraine and Russia?
Well, thank you, Tommy. Always good to be back with you again. Yeah, absolutely dominating the news cycle. No matter which channel of the TV you turn on or which site you go to, practically on the internet, the news is dominated by Ukraine and Russia. The most probably horrifying development of the last few days, of course, I think has been the discovery of Russian atrocities against civilians in areas where Russian troops have been pushed out, especially the town of Bucha and in and around the capital of Ukraine, Kiev, and hundreds of bodies of civilians strewn around the street, buried sometimes in mass graves, hands tied behind their backs, executed, shots to the head. I mean, just horrifying stuff.
I didn't hear any of this. I guess I've had my head in the sand.
Well, this is only within the last couple of days. I would say since the weekend, which is just a couple days ago. And of course, so as the Russians madly try to spin and say this is a frame up somehow by the Ukrainians, the concern in many places, excuse me, is, there are places still occupied by Russian troops. What happens when they get pushed out of there? Will we see this kind of mass atrocity repeated in other places? The United States ambassador to the United Nations, Linda, excuse me a moment.
You're quite all right.
What is her name? It's a hyphenated name. Gotta find this.
You're quite all right.
You'll clean this up, right?
I can.
Yeah, take out the pause here.
I think
all right, her name is Linda Thomas Greenfield.
Linda
Thomas Greenfield, the American ambassador to the United Nations, spoke there earlier today. This is Tuesday, April the 5th of 2022. And she made the request that Russia be removed from the United Nations Human Rights Committee. And obviously that is something that will resonate around the world with many. We'll see where that goes exactly. But that was put forward at the United Nations just this morning by the American ambassador there. So that's probably the most horrifying development of the last couple days regarding Ukraine and Russia. And the videos, the film footage coming out of there it's just horrific. The Ukrainian president Volodymyr Zelensky went and toured the areas in Bucha in particular. I think that was yesterday. He went there. His face is haggard. I mean, it shows the strain of these last many weeks, but also, the horror of what they're discovering.
Jesus Christ, I didn't hear any of that. That's
yeah. It's all over the news. I mean, any place you turn on.
Now, I can only imagine, as someone with zero military experience, that had to have been sanctioned top down, or was that taking it into their own hands?
Well, I don't know anymore how intact the chain of command is, all the way from President Vladimir Putin of Russia in the Kremlin on down through his senior military commanders to the ones on the ground in these various places in Ukraine. I don't know how intact that chain of command is, but certainly that any level of the Russian military and the troops would feel, I don't know, free to do something like this. I mean, it's one thing, that a bomb goes astray and there's collateral damage, and that happens in conflicts.
In every
And I can
conflict, yeah.
understand that. But this is direct, atrocity, human rights abuses, war crimes against civilians on a street level, on the ground street level. And, is it a breakdown of discipline within the Russian forces, or is this just the way they're operating? And they feel that they can do so with impunity and get away with it, and there'll be no consequences from their chain of command on up. Did those orders to commit atrocities like this, to frighten, to terrorize Ukrainians, to exact revenge against Ukrainians because they're pushing the Russians out of these areas? Did those orders come from higher up? Don't know right now. We just don't know. But the fact is that there are hundreds and hundreds of bodies, and they're all over the ground in these places.
Yeah, it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, was it sanctioned from the top down? In which case, all right, that's bad for Russia. And or was it not sanctioned? And then there's no accountability, and it's just the Wild West, in which case, Putin, you don't have control of your military. Not good. Yeah, I mean, that's not to make light of any of this, but there are always civilian casualties. There just are. Be it, yeah, bombings, World War II. We razed whole cities. It's what it, I don't know. There's something a little more personal about the handcuffing.
Yeah, that's the word. It was personal. It was directed at individual civilian people. These are obviously civilians. There are women among them. There are elderly among them. People dressed in civilian clothing. They're obviously not military. Hands zip tied behind their backs, shot in the head. It's horrific.
If I was Russia's PR or their lawyer right now, like, I would be trying to be like, okay, it wasn't a bombing casualty. Maybe you could argue these were resisting in war, and they had guns. The handcuffing, you've already got them. You got them.
Yeah, and some of them are filmed, lying in the street next to their bicycles. They were obviously riding a bicycle down the street, and they and their bicycle are now, lying on the side of the road.
So because clearly I think I've just been unplugged for the last 2 days or so, 3 days really. What's been the international response to this so far? What
horror.
more? Yeah.
Absolutely horror. I think that the American ambassador's words were very somberly and well received at the United Nations. I think there probably will be very serious consideration given to a vote on removal of the Russians from that human rights commission at the UN. They have no business being on a human rights committee of any sort. And then, of course, what has been the response in practical terms as President Zelensky, continues to plead for more and heavy weapons, to include the Stingers, the Javelins. But now, as we're looking at the Russian attempt in the south of Ukraine to take that strip of land we've talked about before, along the Sea of Azov, that would connect Russia geographically with Crimea, which they are not right now connected. The attempt to take that strip where Mariupol is located, for example, And also to move beyond that, perhaps even to attack Odessa, which is on the Black Sea outside of the Sea of Azov through the Kerch Strait. As we look at that theater and the very real possibility that Mariupol will fall within the next, I don't know, a day or two or so. But were Russia to be able to seize that objective, that strip along the Sea of Azov, and then even maybe, go after Odessa itself, and were they to succeed in those objectives, Ukraine could be cut off from the water. Ukraine could become landlocked. And so back to what Zelensky is asking for in terms of weaponry, now the thought is got to give him shore to ship kind of missiles like harpoons or similar, so that if and when Russians come from the sea to try to bombard these cities or to effect an amphibious landing, that there would be weaponry, missiles that could take out their vessels, their warships, their amphibious landing vessels, whatever they may be. So basically harpoons or something like that. So that's where the shift is going on in focus as Russian troops do withdraw from the area around Kiev, the capital. They're not going to take the capital. They have failed at doing that. Some of the Russian troops have retreated northwards into Belarus. Others have moved eastward, where it looks like they're headed for the Donbass, but these units are so badly mauled in terms of the personnel and their equipment and weapons. It's not very clear that they'd be much assistance to the ongoing offensives, let's say, in the Donbass, but that's where they're going. That looks like where they're headed. So the two, major areas that the Russians seem to be focusing on now would be the Donbass, that eastern strip, bordering up against Russia, and then the south. Those would be both very strategic, very key.
Didn't Russia conscript like 100,000 men last week?
Well, every spring, the Russians call up, draft a certain number, 130,000, 140,000 new conscripts. But those are very young men, for one thing, 18, 19 years old, maybe. It'll be months before they're anywhere near ready to actually contribute in a substantive way to the Russian armed forces. So that's an annual conscription that goes on, but it's not really expected that, barring complete disaster for the Russians, that they would throw those very green new recruits into the war in Ukraine anytime soon.
So it doesn't really seem like Putin or whoever's in charge of the military, really whatever, the monolith of the Russian military, it really doesn't seem like they care then, right? If the sanctions didn't do anything, if we've been flooding them with weapons and that's really not doing a whole lot, they clearly haven't been fazed by the PR disaster that this is. And now they're not stupid. They may be evil. They're not stupid. There's no way they thought they were going to hide those mass graves.
No, they want those dead civilians to be seen to terrorize the rest of Ukrainians who are still resisting, their aggression. That's what that's about. The same way, that the assault on civilian areas and apartment blocks and so forth in Mariupol, the city in the south, that is also a demonstration of, look, if you don't just, give up and surrender, this is what's going to happen to you. War crimes, absolutely. And I think we've talked about this before, but Russia has, and its war crimes already have been presented at the International Court at The Hague in the Netherlands. process that takes quite a while, but these videos, the photos and the videos coming out of places like Bucha will be evidence. And I gather, I only saw this briefly, but it seems that there is not just now current contemporaneous film and videos of these atrocities in places like Bucha, but apparently earlier satellite photographs are coming to light that demonstrate some of that going on over the previous several weeks. So
Oh,
yeah, I mean, the sanctions against Russia absolutely are wreaking havoc with their economy. It may take a while to have that, complete effect or collapse, but that's what's coming. And indeed, that along with the diplomatic pariah status of Russia
yeah.
and Putin and his top leadership, and the devastation being wreaked upon his military, Putin's military, by the Ukrainians, all of that, those were the reasons why some of us did not expect Putin to go through with this invasion, because those were things, if you remember, we talked about this, we expected this to happen were he to go in as he now has done. And some of us thought that would be a deterrent, that, as you say, they're not stupid, but that would, be a deterrent for the full-on invasion that we have seen take place. But it wasn't a deterrent in the end. They went ahead anyway. And all of these effects are now playing out in front of our eyes. It doesn't mean, that Russia has lost the war. It doesn't mean that Ukraine has won the war. It's nowhere near over. And, we're going to have to watch very carefully. It will matter the continuing supply of ammunition and weapons and other kinds of supplies to the Ukrainians, but that seems to be a steady flow, certainly from NATO neighboring countries there in Eastern Europe. Although I was just listening to General Jerry Boykin, former Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence. He was speaking on TV, and he was commenting on the question of whether the Biden administration is deliberately, slow walking some of this supply, some of these weapons, the supply of some of these weapons, because for whatever reason they don't want Putin to completely lose, and they don't want Ukraine completely to win and shove the Russians out of their sovereign territory. You hear the question mark at the end of my voice, and this is what General Boykin was addressing, and he thought it possible, he thought it likely that the Biden administration actually is deliberately slow walking, approval and shipment resupply of some of these weapon systems.
Why?
I think, according to what I heard General Boykin say, he believes that the Biden administration is cowed. It is afraid of what Putin will do if he is thoroughly thrashed and pushed into a corner. That the Biden administration is afraid of what Putin might do. Turn to tactical nuclear weapons, turn to unleashing chemical or biological weapons. That the Biden administration, in effect, is being deterred by Putin. That is what General Boykin said in this clip that I just heard.
Gonna really go out on a limb here and really play devil's advocate. Could they be looking at how the sanctions didn't deter them, how they are openly slaughtering civilians? It seems like they're going for broke. Is there someone in the military command who's looking at this and going, they're not acting rationally? it maybe isn't off the table that they'll start using tac nukes, and then you got to make that
Sure.
really hard decision to go Ukraine or the whole world, which includes
Well,
Ukraine.
I mean, yeah, no, that's not far-fetched at all to think of, to think in those terms. I agree with you that that's a possible, um, way
Yeah,
that some of our senior leadership might be thinking. But nevertheless, they are being deterred. They are cowed,
yeah,
in a way that, interestingly, um, Eastern European NATO allies like Poland are not. Hungary, not being cowed or deterred. And they're right there on the border.
yeah, yeah. Again, I'm no Biden fan, but I have to try to, again, as much as I don't like them, I don't look at anything any of these world leaders do as stupid. I tend to think that it's something, there is a reasoning behind it, and that's the only thing I can think of. Someone
Oh, it makes
somewhere,
sense.
someone
Yeah.
somewhere is like, dude, this guy's firing from the hip. He might actually just throw a tac nuke somewhere. And it's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the logic of intercepting commercial airlines on 9/11. You either kill everyone on board and you kill all the civilians, or you don't shoot it down and then it goes and hits a building and kills everyone on board and everyone at the target. The global thermonuclear war also kills everyone in Ukraine. And like that's, I can't make that decision, but I mean, we definitely have the ability to do it. The U.S. military can mobilize things anywhere. We can deliver things anywhere. There's got to be a reasoning behind it. And well, that's terrifying then, because that even shows that they're not sure what Putin will do. What do you
Well,
think?
nobody can be sure at this point. And
Yeah.
and obviously, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is not going as planned at all. We're into, what is it now? About the fifth week, I think. Um, and a certain, measure of desperation may be affecting the decision making in the Kremlin, and on the part of Putin himself individually. Uh, does he survive? Whether in office or just period survive? Or at some point, do the oligarchs around him, the ones who keep him in power, the silovitsi in Russian, meaning the strong ones, um, or his senior military command, do they finally, reach the decision, um, this is disastrous for all of us, them speaking, um, and somebody's got to stop it. And to stop it, they have to stop Putin. Does it reach that point? There's been open, speculation, and even, wishful thinking along those lines, spoken out loud by people like Senator Lindsey Graham, for example. But it's certainly a thought. At what point, does that senior leadership around Putin feel affected themselves personally enough in their own either security or lives or ambitions or whatever it may be, that they, call a halt and say, this is not working. We're not achieving objectives. This is really harming them personally. Not that they care about Russia per se, even, or the Russian people, or the poor conscript troops who don't even know where they're going or why, but them personally. And when that happens, and when it happens for enough of them, then maybe there will be steps taken in Russia, in Moscow.
Now, is there any point at which those nations, Poland and Hungary, do you think that there's a point in which they go and act if they're looking at the US and saying they won't do anything, and they might be thinking we're
No, no,
next?
I don't think any NATO member is going to just go off on their own and take actions that would, um, place all of NATO, in danger. They're not going to do that. What they will do, I think, what they are doing is stepping up to the extent possible the resupply of the Ukrainian forces and any kind of weaponry they can supply to them, and which, the Ukrainians, Zelensky, they are requesting. And again, I mentioned all those different kinds of missiles, certainly drones, certainly they want the MiGs, and here's another point that General Jerry Boykin made in that online or on-air interview a bit ago. And basically he said, if that's what Zelensky and the Ukrainian armed forces need and want, it's not for us to second judge them and say, well, we think you can do fine without the MiGs. That's not for us to say. And I don't know if Poland, Hungary, or any of the others would just go ahead and transfer those MiG-29s that they have and had offered to Ukraine before the United States kind of squashed the idea. But I think the NATO, bordering countries are doing and will continue to do as much as they possibly can.
That's kind of where my line of thinking is I don't think Poland or Hungary or anyone would actually go and physically do something.
Right.
But it seems like if the US is slow, people above me in the apartment are stomping around. Sorry. It seems like they would, if they thought the US was deliberately slow walking weapons, yeah, why wouldn't they just go transfer the MiGs?
Well, they had hesitated before because the US had held them back, once again fearful that supplying those MiGs would be escalatory. Well, many commentators have, made the point. What's the difference between a surface-to-air missile? That's another weapon system, an aerial defense system like the S-300 or 400 or something like that. What's the difference between that, which brings down a Russian plane over Ukraine, and a MiG fighter jet that could possibly do the same thing? What's the difference? I don't know if the Poles will come to that decision at some point or not, but they could. But no, I don't think they're going to take any kind of unilateral action that would directly involve NATO in the conflict. They're not going to do that. Ammunition, weapons supply, equipment supply, all of that, yeah, but not anything that would directly involve NATO without, the agreement of the rest of NATO.
Yeah. It does kind of seem like we're in this weird game of chicken now, where we're looking at Russia and we're like, well, the sanctions won't stop them. They don't really care about killing people. But in the same vein, it's also kind of a staring contest with the US and NATO. What will get us involved? And we're kind of looking down at the atrocities and going like, no, we're still not going in. It is kind of this weird, like, dual game of chicken where maybe it's Putin going forward a little bit and we're not doing anything yet. And is there any, if we just extrapolate that, then it seems like there's really no other outcome than the rest of the world watches waving their finger as Putin bulldozes Ukraine.
Well, no, I mean, I do think that NATO members, including the United States, are walking a fine line that they don't want to cross over in any major way. But at the same time, as we've said, they are pouring massive amounts of weapons, supplies, ammunition, in addition to providing very good, as I understand it, good and real-time intelligence on Russian troop movements and the like. I just read something else today, which was kind of fascinating, and that is that when the Russian troops went into some of these places, they had with them their own cell phones, I guess, but the Ukrainians switched that network off, so the Russians could not communicate on their own cell phones, their own networks, right? So they were grabbing the cell phones, stealing the cell phones of Ukrainian civilians. And, the troops are then calling back home, hey, mom, I'm okay. Which the Ukrainians, of course, tracked, triangulated, and identified. I think there's been a very serious cyber war going on at the same time here. And the capture of some of these signals, the IDs, I mean, the literal names of these Russians has been collected en masse. There's quite, I think, a collection of specific identities of Russians. Now, that may help at The Hague. It may help with the war crimes investigations, but just know that a whole bunch of Russians have been doxxed by the Ukrainians.
How
So,
stupid can you be to pick up a phone? Good Lord. Maybe they are stupid. Maybe they're not just evil.
well, I mean, think about being 18 or 19 years old.
Yeah.
We know a lot more now. You at 31 and me at sometime later than we ever did at the age of 18 or 19.
Yeah, no, if I was 18, I'd probably believe everything that Russia's telling you. You probably think you're fighting for Mother Russia. And yeah, that's
But when you commit specific war crimes, like the direct execution of civilians with hands tied behind their backs, that include elderly women, then it doesn't matter if you're 18, you're guilty. Or any age above that. That is something that you do know at the age of 18 is wrong. You may not know the exact wording of the Geneva Conventions or the laws of warfare, but that's wrong, and they will pursue them. They will pursue them. And when I say they, I mean the Ukrainians, of course. I think they're getting a lot of help also from others nearby in Europe, NATO members.
Yeah. So realistically, then, if there are war crimes, if it's already begun, if the trial process or the presenting of evidence has already begun at The Hague, wouldn't that just trying to play devil's advocate, wouldn't that be one more reason for the Russians to go for broke? Like, now it's like, I mean, it's like speeding along with a gun in the car and you're driving drunk, and like there are cops at like the border to Mexico. There are like nail strips along the, like, at a certain point there's no reason for me to stop the car because it's like I'm going to jail. Why not go for broke?
Possibly so, which is all the more reason to continue that flow of weapons, ammunition, and supplies into Ukraine, so that they could actually have a chance of pushing the Russians out, which is what Zelensky has articulated as his goal, out of Ukrainian territory. Ukraine wins, Russia loses. That's the goal.
Yeah. Now, and this is wild speculation, do you think there's any chance of China helping out Russia? Even
they
if
are helping. China is helping Russia in ways behind the scenes. They are not overtly backing them, let's say, diplomatically, but behind the scenes, China needs what Russia has, which is to say energy supplies, oil, gas, and also agricultural products like grains, wheat, that Russia produces in massive volumes. China needs that, wants that, and will pay for that. And so what they're doing is making almost a separate payment system behind the scenes with Russia and others like Iran as part of this too, for the purchase and the payment for these kinds of products. Now, China is not really advertising all out that they are behind the Russians, but of course they signed together, that very public, it was public back in early February 4th, I think, of this year, 2022, that very extensive, expansive, joint agreement between them of cooperation. So, that still stands. Now, I think that after all of this, China and the Chinese Communist Party leadership, Xi Jinping and the Central Committee, et cetera, probably looking at Putin and Russia in a couple of ways. One, very damaged goods. Maybe a burden in terms of the international world, the relationships that China wants to have, for example, with the United States, because we're one of their, maybe the biggest
Importer.
importer of Chinese goods. They don't want to damage that. But at the same time, like I said, they want and need these products coming out of Russia. I think the relationship between Russia and China has flipped from earlier decades, when Russia was the senior partner providing to China weapons and other things. But now China's economy is in far better shape, even though it's not in great shape. It's in far better shape than whatever's left of the Russian economy. Russia's going to become a gas station and a supermarket, a vassal state for China. I think that's the way Beijing is envisioning it. That's what they're looking at. So yes, they're helping them behind the scenes more than anything else, certainly financially, separate payment system. But they're not, the Chinese are not all that eager, I think, to trumpet their support for what Putin and Moscow are doing. They want what they want. They want to get what they are going to need going forward, products, in other words, energy and agricultural products. But Russia is kind of going to be a very smelly albatross around their neck. So they have to manage that sort of carefully. They're not going to be all out, in the open on that.
In the final couple minutes, is there any good news in the world? Do you have anything positive for me, Claire?
Let me think. Spring is coming.
Okay.
The dandelions and the bluebells are popping up on my front lawn.
Okay. I'll take it.
My Bradford pear tree is blooming in the backyard, and it's gorgeous.
That's good.
Help?
That's good enough for me. I'll take it. I'm not too greedy. I have low expectations for good news. What do you think about? It's kind of nothing to do with anything we talked about. Do you think Elon Musk is gonna try to take full control of Twitter?
Yeah, there's a piece of good news. I had forgotten about that.
9.2%.
So for your viewers, listeners, Elon Musk has just purchased what was the percentage?
I think it's 9.2.
9.2% of Twitter, shortly after he had criticized Twitter's lack of dedication to free speech. And he has just now been invited to take a seat on the board of directors of Twitter. So stay tuned, folks, because this could really become fun. Let's watch.
This could become hilarious. God, I hope. God, that would be amazing. Maybe there is some good news, and that could actually be.
I'm glad you brought that up. That's a very interesting piece of news. Could be good news too.
It's very odd. Yeah, he's got 4 times the share of Jack Dorsey now, but I don't think there's any defined majority. I don't think any one person owns 50.
No, but he does have a bigger
stake than anyone
set of shares than anyone else, right?
Yeah.
Now.
So he's a majority, but not in the conventional 51% majority.
No, not that, but yeah.
That would be hilarious.
Major player now on the board of directors of Twitter.
God, I hope Elon just takes that thing over. That would be amazing.
It's
maybe that's the way to go. Maybe you got to start like buying out these big tech companies. Maybe that's the only way that works. The government.
That might be what he has in mind. He could bring back a couple of people I can think of who had been banned from Twitter.
If he brought back Donald Trump,
wouldn't that be awesome?
That would be hilarious. I would hope he would also bring back Alex Jones just for the
another one,
just for the full They go
I
with
can think of several others too. Yeah.
yeah, that would be amazing. Man,
Dr. Robert Malone.
oh yeah, my
Um,
buddy.
there
Yeah,
we go.
that would be amazing.
We don't know, but let's see.
Maybe. Or he becomes more tyrannical than anybody. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he needs it.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Yeah, it would be awesome.
I'm looking for fun there.
I'm
So,
optimistic.
yeah, me too. On that. That's a good place to end.
So Elon buying Twitter and dandelions. I'll take it. All things
Bluebells
considered.
too. Bradford
Yeah,
pear.
and yeah, I'll take it. All things considered, I'll take it. Miss Claire Lopez, thank you so much. I will send you the episode when it's up. All your links will be in the description. Until next time, thank you so much.
Terrific.
All right.
Thank you.